Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Athletes in Practice. My name is Marquez White. I am the founder and host of Athletes in Practice. Here at Athletes in Practice, we interview physicians who used to be student athletes and have them share how their experiences and skills that they developed during their time as a student athlete has impacted their journey in medicine. We share these interviews with current pre-med student athletes to show them how the skills that they are developing now as student athletes will pay off in the long run during medical school and as they become a successful practicing physician. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Caroline Sipiora, a former Division I volleyball player at the University of Utah and a current family medicine resident in the Sacramento area. I would love to start by hearing your journey to where you are today. Maybe we could start with your recruitment story, how you got recruited to the University of Utah. At the end, you could share what interested you in medicine.
Yeah. So where to begin? Well, I grew up playing a lot of sports my whole life: soccer, volleyball, track, basketball, pretty much everything but swimming. Not a swimmer. But did a lot of sports growing up. And I started getting recruited for volleyball from colleges my freshman year of high school, which was nerve-wracking. You're like 14 and you're getting letters from these colleges. You're like, I just graduated eighth grade. I don't know what's going on.
I haven't even seen my high school, and now I'm looking at colleges. That's
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
insane.
Yeah, yeah. It was. It was like your first week of eligibility. I got like 3 letters in the mail, and I was like, what? Anyway, so that was kind of a wild ride to get recruited that early. But it happened because I was always playing up a year. So, kids that were a year ahead of me were getting scouted. And so they were seeing me when I was in eighth grade, but these kids that were in, high school already were getting seen. And so that's how I was seen a little bit earlier. But yeah, so kind of smooth process, got recruited, kept playing. And then my junior year, I tore my ACL for the first time. Yeah, so this is where everything kind of just got mixed up and my life just kind of was completely turned around because, athletes, most of us know, it's pretty common knowledge that an ACL is a huge recovery and it takes a long time to rehab and get back to your sport. So that was the first kind of mix up here. And it was, what was it? I think it was February 1st of my junior year. So it was kind of rough. But that was, I think, a few months, unfortunately, after I had verbally committed to the University of Utah. So in that fall of my junior year, I had already committed verbally. So it was a full ride scholarship, which was amazing. But then I tore my ACL a few months later. So yeah, it was devastating to say the least. I had never gone through kind of major injuries like that. I've broken bones and, those heal pretty fast, right?
Mhm.
Nothing that takes 6, 9, 12 months to rehab or recover from. So I was just, devastated, depressed. You go into that whole spiral, right? And I remember one of my coaches, it was just so defining for me. And she said, you can let this situation and injury control you, or you can take control of the situation. And so I was like, that's actually a good point. And so I really shifted my mindset and basically made a daily schedule. Okay, what can I do today that's going to get me to my goal? And so that's kind of where I think resilience and grit started, was from that very first injury and having that mindset shift was that first injury. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was, when I grew up at that point, but rehabbing that knee and getting to see my surgery, I got to watch the video. Actually, it was pretty cool.
Was that a little disturbing? I don't know. I feel like
I know.
It's like,
well, I think
my knee wide open.
It was a good sign that I liked it because I was like, oh,
Okay.
well, maybe I should do something in medicine because this is really cool. I loved all of the mechanics of it. I loved the very mechanical aspect of fixing something like that. And so I got thinking about, oh, maybe I want to do something in medicine. And so that kind of started off the journey, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then, so fast forward, rehabbed a bunch, came back like a year later. I was playing top of my game again, feeling great. My Utah, they supported me. They're like, hey, setbacks happen. Let's get back on track. And, we'll still support you. We still want you, still had the scholarship, and that was still, part in the works. Fast forward a year, I tear my ACL again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was, and it's the left ACL. So I tear it again.
The same one.
The same one. Yeah. We're just getting started. Yeah. So that I tear the same ACL again. And I was top of my game. Like I wasn't even wearing a brace anymore. I felt amazing. And then I tore it again. And that one really, really messed with my head because I did everything right. I rehabbed. I was stronger. My skills were there. Everything was there. And I still got injured. Right. So at that point, I was like, oh, my body's failing me. Like, oh my gosh, I had a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of kind of spiraling that was going on, which was really hard to get out of, to be honest. And that second one, I think, hit me the hardest. And so what made it even worse or more difficult to deal with is that Utah said, okay, well, now you're kind of a liability. And so we can't guarantee your scholarship anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Because at this point I was, verbally committed. I hadn't signed anything. And so it was, my scholarship was kind of like, well, we can't confirm your scholarship anymore because of your injuries and it's a liability. And so that was the position would most likely be a walk-on. And to go from full ride to walk-on position is, as an athlete, it's really hard.
Yeah,
really hard, right?
More like mentally than anything. You're like,
yeah.
I should, and you can be, and you prove that you should be. And then they like bring you back to walk on, like you need to prove yourself for the third time. Really?
Yeah.
Like,
oh. Yeah. Wow. So that made that second one just even, as you can imagine, even worse, right? Going through this whole journey and then for it to happen again, and then to have this extra kind of, obstacle of not having that confirmed, scholarship was just beyond difficult to deal with. But I rehabbed again, did the same thing I did the first time, pulled myself up from my bootstraps and just put my head down and got to work. Because that was I tore it again my senior year, I actually deferred Utah a semester and I rehabbed at home so that I could just be with family, have a really great support system, and I wouldn't be on crutches in Utah in the snow. Yeah.
In a new place completely. Like, exactly. That's smart.
Yeah. So I rehabbed at home, and then I went in the winter of like 2014 or something like that. And so now I'm at college, and just buckle up. It's a journey. So I'm at college, and the winter goes great. I love the team. I love my teammates, my coaches. Everything's exactly what I expected it to be. Just really great. I'm getting back into the swing of things. Come like summer, where we're having 2-a-days, which is your preseason, really getting ready, gearing up for practice. Tear my ACL for the third time.
Third time.
So here I am trying to again. So this is my left knee again, third time. And I'm trying to, compete for a starting position as a walk-on, right? And I know that I have the skills for it. And then tear my ACL again. And so, get that repaired from now Utah surgeon who says, oh, hey, you've been tearing your ACL and your MCL this whole time. Your MCL never actually repaired itself. And where the tear actually was in your MCL, the location, it never would have. So your knee was always going to be weaker and more vulnerable after that first initial tear. So he said that 9 times out of 10, they heal properly and you don't have to repair the MCL. And I was the 1 out of 10 where it didn't.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you could have done about it the first time. It was just the luck of the, oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's just exactly where it tore and in that right position to make it, not heal the way it needed to. But for this third surgery, we repaired that MCL. So rock solid MCL.
Yes.
After this. But this third one, I could go into all the graphs and, and which kind of graphs we use, but that's a little too, it's a lot. But for this third one, we actually used my patellar tendon of my right leg as the ACL in my left.
Left. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was kind of an autograft. So my own tissue
Mhm.
is the new ACL. And I was in a wheelchair because
Th-
I was in a
You
wheelchair for a
couldn't
week
bend your,
because
oh,
mm-mm.
because
So
usually
I
it's
had surgery on
crutches for
both
a little
knees.
while, right? Oh,
Yeah.
for both legs. So your both legs were put up in a brace. Oh gosh.
Yep. So I was going from, elite collegiate D1 athlete to I'm in a wheelchair for a week. Ha, someone who's very self-sufficient and very athletic to just I have to rely on people for everything. It was really rough.
And it's the
So,
third time you've gone through the process. So you've been like resilient. You proved it 2 times already for having to do it a third time. And like,
yeah.
it seems like the worst one out of the three just because you had to be in a wheelchair for a little bit.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
is, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was because we did ACL, MCL repair as well as I had articular cartilage damage. So the inside of your joint, all of that, kind of cushion and protection, that was all damaged. So I had basically no cushion in that joint anymore. So they had to do all kinds of different, micro drilling and other things to get this knee working again. um, and so, yeah, it was definitely the hardest rehab. And it was like, I think a 4-hour surgery, maybe 5.
Wow.
And so it was a big one. It was a big one. Um, and by this point, after 3 surgeries, I knew I wanted to go into medicine.
You've been
I
around it
was,
enough, right?
yes, yes. I've been a patient. I've, rehabbed. I know the mechanics of the knee. I know the surgeries inside out. My goodness, the amount of times I watched my own surgeries. And so at this point, I wanted to go into orthopedics. I wanted to, help athletes fix their knees, fix their ankles, whatever joint they need. I wanted to do that. I thought it was so cool. And I was already, had that personal experience, which was really cool. But yeah, so that third one, I was like, okay, seal the deal. I want to go into medicine. This is awesome. I want to do surgery, all these things. And so so I basically gray shirted my first year, right? Because I was rehabbing, so no volleyball. Second year, had to red shirt because I was injured again. So now we come to my third season. My third season, I finally got full season of collegiate volleyball.
Yes, yeah.
Finally got my season. And I got to start as a defensive specialist. So I came back and I was a starter, which was just,
I mean, what a journey, right? Like that's got to be all the emotions just working from basically losing a scholarship to all the way down to the lowest of low, like as a walk-on a wheelchair to back to the starting position. That is an incredible journey, incredible accomplishment over 4 years of just constant obstacles. It's impressive on its own, just getting out there again.
Thank you.
Oh
Yeah, it was constantly got, comments and questions of are you gonna stop? Like, you've injured this how many times now? Why don't you, isn't this the universe saying to stop? Like, and I was like, no, I'm gonna push as long as my body can take it. And as far as it can go, I know I can do it. And so, yeah, I finally got that season and it felt so awesome. It was great and everything felt really good in my body. And then comes the off season. So I got a full season, right? And then at the end of the off season, I think about a year after that, I tear my lateral meniscus. So yeah, I tear that cartilage that's on the outside. Yeah, same knee, left knee.
Oh my God.
And so I tear that. And honestly, of all the injuries, that was the most painful, I would say. It's awful and terrible and so painful. But yeah, so I had that. Realized I couldn't barely walk on it because it was so painful. So I definitely needed to get it out of there. Needed surgery. So I had my 4th knee surgery to remove the lateral meniscus. And that was I was just like, what else? Let's just, let's see what else I can handle. Yeah. So I had that surgery. And luckily it went well, it went smooth. Unfortunately the surgeon had to take out most of it. And so there was really not that much cushion there anymore in that knee. But I persevered and I started to play a little bit again. And it never felt quite right. I would have, pain on certain movements and I couldn't run as fast. I couldn't cut. I wasn't as dynamic because I was in pain. And it really limited my range and my skills because you can't do the same things when your knee isn't working the way it should. And so after that, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? It was swelling. It was painful. I couldn't play, even though we tried different injections. So I tried steroid injections. Didn't help. PRP didn't help. Hyaluronic acid, so more cushion trying to get in there, didn't help. So we exhausted our options until finally my surgeon was like, okay, well, we can do surgery. We can replace that meniscus, but you can't play again after this. He's like, your next surgery after this one is a knee replacement. So you're done. And that news was devastating. It still kind of gets me a little bit because as an athlete, you identify, right? You identify with your sport and being athletic and, to have that just your body kind of fail you, right? Of just like, oh my gosh, it's still hard to kind of deal with and talk about. But yeah, so I got that surgery because I knew down the line I wanted to be active and I didn't want a knee replacement at, I think I was 22. So I got surgery, my fifth knee surgery. And unfortunately, I had to medically retire from volleyball at the ripe age of 22, having one single season under my belt of playing.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story. I mean, that
of course, yeah.
in itself it's got to be so tough for you to have to like relive that. But at the same time, I think like not many people can say that they push their body to the absolute limit in their sport.
Yeah.
Like most athletes are done when they graduate and like they probably still have some left in the tank. You left every last bit of yourself out on that court, and that's something to be really proud of, I think. That most athletes wish they could do, and I don't think most athletes can, to be quite honest. But you did, which is just such an incredible story.
Thank you. Yeah. It was heartbreaking because volleyball and that chapter was closing and it was really hard, but at the same time, having that chapter close pushed me even further into my pre-medicine courses and really drove me to pursue medicine and to really realize that, okay, well, I can't do volleyball anymore. So now I have to put 100% of that resilience and that grit and determination into medicine now. And so that really allowed me to pick up my grades and make sure that I was, a really great candidate for medical school, and really helped me focus my energy on medicine instead of being kind of like split. It's really hard, trying to give your all to a sport while rehabbing, and having all these injuries and also still being pre-med. It's a lot.
That's what I was going to say. People need to realize that like you were going through multiple surgeries while taking these pre-med courses that are arguably some of the toughest courses at universities. Like that combination, not just being a student athlete, but rehab for hours a day, surgery, so you're probably missing classes because of for medical reasons. Like that on top of it is even more than the normal student athlete. So it is impressive that you finished the pre-med like course requirements in itself. It's astonishing, really. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, not without lots of tears and blood and sweat. For sure. But yeah, it really, it gave me the resilience, the mindset, the grit, all of those amazing things that helped me in medicine and really just propelled me, and gave me this amazing drive that I could, use to fuel my pursuit of medicine and that career. So, it's pretty incredible. So,
to hear the story of how I mean, you could just pass it over to your medical studies. It's very cool. And then I think it leads into a question that I have. And I mean, it sets it up great. I think hearing all these setbacks that you've had in your athletic career, I think a lot of physicians have setbacks or times where they feel burnt out, just as you probably felt many times throughout your rehab journey of many years. Do you feel that you have used that or have had experiences in your medical career that you've had to apply that?
Yes, definitely. There is not just crossover, it's the same thing. And I would say that it's the same, just a slightly different, because your body, you can push your body. And as athletes, we do that. We, run more. We're tired, doesn't matter. We run more. We push our bodies to the absolute limits. And medical school, yeah, there's some, physical pushing, right? Where we're, not getting as much sleep. Maybe, we're, doing things here and there that aren't, we're not working out as much because we're studying, things like that. But it's a mental push. And so I would say that the mental push that I had to do with my injuries really is what got me to push through, setbacks in medical school. And so I think there were so many moments in medical school, especially your first semester, where you're just trying to drink from that fire hydrant of information and you're trying to just get sipped as much as you can, but there's so much information. It's an onslaught and you feel like you're kind of drowning and you're just trying to tread water and breathe. During that first semester especially, I made sure that, okay, what's my goal? What do I need to, what percentage do I need on this exam? How do I get there? And then I just focused every single day. Okay, how many questions do I need to do? How many hours of studying do I need to do? Pages I need to read? I really just broke it down so that it was easier to digest and that I didn't get in my head about it. I try to just break it down and be as robotic and mechanic about it as I could. And really just get to my goal with, little daily goals, which is all my rehab was little daily goals. I was going to
say, that sounds eerily similar to exactly what you said after you first tore your ACL. You're like, these are what I need to do. This is what I need to do every single day to reach my goal of getting back on the field or on the court. Exactly. And then through medical school, this is exactly what I need to do every day to pass an exam or make it through next year. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot of crossover, a lot of translation, very similar. It sounds like just this time it's a mental push instead of that physical push that you experience in sports.
Yeah.
And I guess my next question was like, how has your experience as a student athlete contributed to your day-to-day in medicine? But I mean, I think you've answered that very clearly through how you use that through medical school. Do you maybe see yourself using that when you're practicing medicine?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just going into medical school as a, former student athlete, you have these skills of time management. And then you also have, I mean, it's borderline addiction to staying active. And so, working out and being active and fit is something that kept me completely sane throughout the whole process of medical school. We would have groups of people that, students that we would all work out together, and it felt like a little team. And so we kind of made our own little team and working out and, moving my body and getting my mind off of things and just being an athlete for a minute really helped ground me and helped me, helps you sleep better. We know all the benefits of exercise as well, but it's something that I will never stop doing. I will always be, smart, and I will always be fit and active and keep working out so that I have, that break from my mental health and that really good foundation. Moving into residency, it's a lot of hours and a lot of work. I've heard from, lots of my friends that are already residents and, people before, that if you don't have the discipline and a routine, it's even harder. And so, as student athletes, we are great with discipline and we're great with routines. And so, that's something I'm going to establish really early, make sure that I have a super solid, mental, physical health routine so that I keep myself healthy and happy as possible and sane as possible through the whole process of all of these crazy hours.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you've proven that past 8-10 years from the start of your rehab, you've proven that you can set a great routine, you can have that great discipline. So I don't think you should have a doubt in your mind that you're going to crush this residency with a great routine.
Thank you.
And then my last question, volleyball is a team sport. Have you shared some of these some of these values that you've learned? It sounds like you had like your little activities team through medical school, so maybe that was a way of it. But have you shared some of these skills that you developed as a student athlete with other med students that perhaps weren't student athletes? And like, how did that change your friendship, team dynamic, or maybe their experiences through med school?
Yeah, definitely. So, big thing I learned through just sports in general, and especially collegiate sports, is leadership, right? Teams give you lots of chances to be leaders and be different types of leaders. And so throughout medical school, I actually became a predoctoral teaching fellow for OMM. So that's osteopathic manual manipulation. So I basically got to teach first and second years how to do osteopathic techniques. And so I was in a great position to be a leader and mentor to first and second year students. And this was a beautiful opportunity for me to really just mentor these students and help them through. And if they needed, advice or, whatever it might be, usually it was, how do you study for exams? How do you pass these big exams, right? And so it's a perfect application of, discipline, plans, staying active, having a really good routine. And so that was something I got to pass on to a lot of the students that I mentored and taught was, what I learned as a student athlete was, these discipline principles and having a great routine.
And I'm sure it impacted them more than you even know. That's a very cool activity to do during medical school. And I think it definitely made an impact on those people that you mentored.
It was an awesome opportunity to get to help people and bring in some of my student athlete ideas and experience.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for your story. I think it's going to touch so many people in so many different ways.